I guess probably the first one that I want to discuss today, and mostly because 162 साल से 162 ईयर्स से आईपीसी के कानून देश के अंदर लगते हैं, लागू होते हैं. सबको पता होता है अटेम्प्ट टू मर्डर हो गया, हमें सेक्शंस रटे हुए होते हैं, इवन पीपल हु आर सिविलियंस.
Right.
All of a sudden, the government has now introduced Bhartiya Nyaya Samhita या Sanhita BNS for lawyers on the other side. What is the implication of this? What have you had to unlearn? And what do civilians need to know about?
So I'll be very honest. I've not really even gone through the 3 acts properly till now. And there's a reason why. The whole debate started several months ago. Then they took a lot of time to implement. Finally, the government said we are notifying them to come into operation from 1st of July 2024, which is very recent. Now, again, me and my entire team till now have had very few occasions in the past couple of weeks to actually deal with the material provisions. However, couple of new things have come up, so very recently my team member was asking me, an associate, whether a case which has already been undergoing. Now, the offense will be of IPC, sure, the Indian Penal Code, which was in existence prior. But what about the procedure which is now applicable in an old case? So I told this junior that according to my understanding, this is a couple of days ago, I told him, according to my understanding, even if the offense is of a prior time and will be tried under the Indian Penal Code, however, the applicable criminal procedure will now be not under the Criminal Procedure Code as it existed earlier, but now under the BNSS. I also forget, but I short में BNSS.
वैसे क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर का मतलब क्या हुआ? फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर आपने किसी को अरेस्ट करा, आपने पहले उनको बताया एज अ पुलिसमैन आपको क्यों अरेस्ट करा गया, आपकी चार्जशीट तैयार होती है, फिर वो डिसाइड करते हैं कि भाई आपको कुछ दिनों की रिमांड होगी या जुडिशियल कस्टडी होगी. ये तो हो गया प्रोसीजर एक, राइट? किसी भी एक पर्टिकुलर क्राइम के लिए फॉलो तो यही करते हैं, राइट?
करेक्ट.
हाउ डज दिस चेंज विद द BNS?
So BNS is the newer version of the Indian Penal Code. The Indian Penal Code contained all of the offenses. You do this act, that's a punishable offense, and this is the time period for which you will go to jail, or the fine that you will pay, or any other thing, right? The definitions of all these crimes were given. Then in what way will a certain thing be done to make it an offense? Those are all detailed in the Indian Penal Code, which is now, I would say, 95% preserved with the BNS. What you just mentioned, all of the things were part of the Criminal Procedure Code. So if you do a particular act, you will go to jail, or this will be the punishment, is all mentioned in the IPC and now the BNS. But who will investigate? Who will conduct the trial? How will every single thing happen, right? The police, the judges, the advocates, the accused person, the victim, everybody and how they operate is all earlier dictated by the Criminal Procedure Code and now under the BNSS.
न्यूज़ के अंदर ये भी आ रहा था कि अब पुलिस को गवर्नमेंट कोशिश कर रही है कि आप ट्राई करो थ्रू डमी FIRs एंड डूइंग ड्रिल्स अराउंड दैट. व्हाट वाज द नीड टू चेंज द IPC? या तो कुछ आर्केक हो गया था ये या फिर इट हैड बिकम डिफिकल्ट टू डील विद? व्हाट वाज द रियल रीजन?
I have no clue. I must confess. I see that majority of these acts, almost everything has remained the same. There are a few changes which have come up, but majorly a big problem for us is we had, as you mentioned, बच्चे को पता है 420 is cheating, like 302 is, punishment for murder. Now those have all been rejuggled, and now we just have to kind of grapple with it, and we are not able to think as fast on our feet. Now, for example, earlier when it came to client consultations, or when it came to discussions with the judge, right, or discussions with other lawyers, it was very quick. We'll just mention the terminology and we'll be like, okay, we moved an application under this. This was what the judge said. This was the particular judgment. And then, we move forward with the discussion. Now we'll have to kind of, take a step back, take a deep breath, and then figure out, okay, what's the new section under which everything has to be done. However, there are a couple of key changes, and especially me when I practice, and I'm looking at the meat of the matter, right? Apart from some cosmetic changes that have been done. For example, just about 2 days back, I was looking at a particular provision under the new law. And so what earlier used to be section 498A, cruelty for the purpose of dowry. Now that cruelty for the purpose of dowry, that section used to be there, 498A, and beneath that section, inside of that section itself, as a second part, used to be the definition clause of what is cruelty. Now in the new act, BNS, the the cruelty for purpose of dowry, the section is there. The definition of cruelty is the next section, not in the same section. So, and I believe that it was a goof up. It was not something deliberate.
So what is the implication for something like this?
Nothing. There's no change as such at all. It is just, and I think this is one of the reasons why one aspect is, I believe I've not gone through the clauses properly. The legal profession, the community says that there are a lot of changes which give the police far more unfettered power. I'm yet to examine those. However, one big grouse that a lot of legal practitioners have, now I'm facing it as well. Why do you have to, okay, you made cosmetic changes, but some things seem very irrelevant. For example, here 498A, which now, whatever, you change the section, sure. But it was part of the section. You just did nothing. You changed nothing in the full stop commas. You broke it into two sections instead of one. It seems to be quite irrelevant to me.
Seems like you're writing a CBSE paper in 10th grade where you have to lines में space छोड़ना होता ताकि marks ज़्यादा मिले. No,
perhaps.
It's strange how this is happening. I think I was reading the news and one gentleman from the ruling party said that these laws are from colonial times, so we must change them. Decoloniality की जो बात चल रही है, I'm sure that is a good sentiment. But if what you're saying is, because you've worked on the ground, कि अगर सिर्फ cosmetic changes ही हैं, you're basically uprooting an entire legal system, all the pending cases, right? It's like everyone has to go back to the books again, right? Have the books been published?
Practitioner, yeah, I mean, so the government has done its job. It has published it on what I call to be the Bible for all Indian acts, right? So when you see lawyers carrying these yellow books in the courtrooms, right, they are actually printed by publishers. So there are scopes for mistake. In fact, recently, one of the high courts, I don't remember which one, specifically passed a judgment on its own saying that we have gone through these so-called published bare acts that we call, that are sold everywhere, and people assume them to be correct. But these bare acts, these publishers made several mistakes. So I don't know which high court it was. That high court gave a warning saying that when you refer to these acts, please go to what the government has actually passed and not what has been printed by the publishers. So, further confusion, but that's not really the government's fault. Yeah. However, one thing, if viewers here want to be 100% sure as to what the actual statute says, is best to go to indiacode.nic.in. That is the official website of the government where they publish all their statutes. And that is where you know that this is 100% what is in operation instead of what you will find in some published bare act, which you will find in the court complex.
What's a bare act?
So we call them bare acts. They are basically they are printed by by book publishers. They are unofficial copies. So you have to.
Punji.
Not really. It's basically, the government has passed the law. Now, how do we put it in the hands of the everyday consumer as a legal practitioner? So book publishers, right? They will just print and keep hard copies of these acts which have been passed by the parliament. Sometimes they also include some very handy comments, some maybe often used judgments they'll also include, but they try to keep them as tight and as concise as possible. And so they print them and for ready reference for lawyers rather than maybe having an iPad and then you're scrolling on it. And if you don't have an iPad or a computer or whatever, if you want to now access it, either you print it out after going to the website, you print it out and then you staple it together yourself, or you just go and buy that that what we call it as a bare act, like bare of bereft of anything else, any other details.